Hello again, baddie friends. My friend and fan, Peggy Sitbun. I don't think I've ever said her last name out loud. I'm not sure that's how it's pronounced. In any case, Peggy asked me to do a video about my favorite villain. So here's the thing about doing a favorite villain video. I like a lot of villains, and I had a really hard time picking just one as my favorite. So instead of doing a favorite, I'm gonna do a top 5 villain list. Number 5 is the Borg Queen from Star Trek. Now, I know what you're gonna say. A lot of people think she ruined the Borg. And there's some legitimate argument to be made there. But I think the issue is with her appearances on Star Trek Voyager, not her original appearance in Star Trek First Contact. In First Contact, she's sexy and powerful and in control and knows what she wants, and at no point gives verbal instructions to the drones that are theoretically linked to her psychically and are essentially just an extension of her own personal body, which is a big part of the issue with the Borg Queen in Voyager, is that she doesn't seem to actually be connected to the drones in the way that we expect the Borg to be connected to one another. And that becomes problematic because it does sort of ruin the Borg. As she exists in Star Trek First Contact, the Borg Queen is badass and beautiful in a really creepy kind of way, and she's my number 5 villain. Number 4 is Winnowill from ElfQuest. That's a little more of an obscure comic than some of you may be familiar with. I started reading it as a kid and I continue to love it as an adult. I have not read past a certain point in the series and probably never will, but without getting into all the details, Winnowill is a badass. She's nasty and power hungry, and I think what makes her so interesting for me is that you find out a little bit of her backstory, and you get to see that slippery slope she starts down, how she begins by genuinely trying to help her people and ends up just being this self-serving monster. And it's kind of wonderful. Number 3 on my list is Lucrezia Mongfish from the comic and book series Girl Genius. Girl Genius, first of all, is available for free online. You should all be reading it. It's this brilliant steampunk, high fantasy, brilliant comic. You should go read it. And Lucrezia, you don't really get to meet her until well into the series, but you sort of hear stories about her throughout, even in the beginning. She's pure villainy, is the thing. At least as far in the series as I have read, she has 0 redeeming qualities. She's just out for herself. She's just out for power. She will be your friend and your ally as long as you are useful to her, and after that, you're dead to her. Possibly literally, because she might kill you. By this point in the series, at least as far as I have read, she's that sort of cartoon villain that is almost too evil to be real. Like, you kind of go, okay, but what's motivating her? What is she trying to accomplish? She must think there's some greater good in this, because we're all the heroes of our own stories, right? And it's not quite far enough to make her an unbelievable, unrelatable character, but it is far enough to make her just, like, entertainingly evil, just, fun evil. Number 2 on my list is Mayor Wilkins from season 3 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, Mayor Wilkins is sort of the polar opposite of Lucrezia in that on the surface of it, he's a really nice guy who, cares about family values and thinks it's bad to swear and so on and so forth. And, he just happens to want to be a giant demon and built the entire town for the sake of his own ascension to demonhood. There's nothing wrong with that, is there? And it's that combination of, like, upstanding family man persona and this deeply rooted fucking evil, driving, motivating force that I really, really love. And he was played brilliantly by Harry Groner, I believe is his name. Brilliant, brilliant portrayal of a really interesting, really unique villain. Now, before I get to my number one villain, I want to talk about a few honorable mentions. For the most part, these are characters that I don't quite see as villains, even if they are typically at odds with the story's protagonist. Number one is Catwoman. I love Catwoman. I've always loved Catwoman, whether it was Julie Newmar or Lee Merriweather or Eartha Kitt back in the old Adam West TV show and movie, or, Michelle Pfeiffer as Selena Kyle in Tim Burton's Batman Returns. I love Catwoman. I've always loved Catwoman. I will always love Catwoman. The reason that she's an honorable mention is that she is usually an antagonist to Batman in some way, and Batman is typically the hero of the story. Even when she is the subject of her own comic, as she was in oh god, I'm blanking on the name of the artist and the writer, but it was that, like, painted-on purple catsuit era, when she was still a jewel thief, and she was still, not an upstanding citizen, but she was a good person. She had good motivations. She wanted good things for herself and kind of fucked the people who didn't deserve them, but she'd still stop and save that kid who fell down and was about to get trampled. You know what I mean? Like, that was the kind of character she was. So she's not really a villain so much as an anti-hero when you see things from her perspective. And of course later, about 10 years ago now? 10, 15 years ago? They full-on just made her a vigilante, made her one of the good guys. So, not one of my favorite villains, because she's not really a villain so much as she's a hero or an anti-hero. Second honorable mention goes to a couple, actually. The Monarch and Dr. Mrs. the Monarch from Venture Brothers. Now, these guys are genuinely and truly villains. There are a few moments in the series where we get to see them just be horrible, heinous, evil people. But most of the time that we see them, and the reason that I'm giving them an honorable mention instead of putting them on my top 5 list, is that they spend a lot of their time on screen being a couple and having the kinds of issues a couple might have if you lived in a world with super science and arch nemeses and supervillains and so on. And so I don't think it's entirely their villainy that is what I love about them. I love the absurdity of their relationship in the context of their villainy, but not their villainy itself, which is, as I said, why they are only receiving an honorable mention instead of a full-on favorite. The number one favorite villain spot in my heart goes to Ursula from Disney's The Little Mermaid. And here's why. I know a lot of you are going to be surprised to hear me say that because you've heard me bitch and moan about so many things about Disney over the years, and all of that is still true, but there's a lot about Ursula that I love. On a personal level, I love that she's this fat woman with the power to change people's appearances like that, and at no point does she feel insecure about herself or her body in such a way that she wants to use that power for herself. I mean, she does, but for reasons unrelated to body image. That's another conversation. So, as someone who grew up fat to someone who is still fat, in a weird, backwards, villainous kind of way, she was sort of a role model for body positivity that I didn't even realize I was getting as a child. She's also unrepentant. And while there are a lot of theories, there's at the very least a rumor, I don't know how true it is, that in early versions of the script she was King Triton's sister who was banished because patriarchy, essentially. So while there's all these potential very good reasons for why she does what she does and why she has it out for Ariel and King Triton, we don't ever see any of that on screen. All we get is that she is powerful, and she wants what she wants, and she will do what she needs to do to get it. And while what she wants is, regicide, it's still pretty awesome. You know, so you get sort of the villainy aspect of her being motivated by nothing other than the need or desire for power, at least that we get to see. But she's so powerful and she's so self-contained. I fucking love Ursula. Ursula's the best. As indicated by her position as number 1 on my top 5 villains list. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you disagree with any of my choices or think I forgot somebody important, please leave me a comment below or just give me a list of who your favorites are. I'd love to hear them.